Well, good evening. I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network, sponsored each and every week by CVC Success Group. And what's our purpose in doing this? Hey, it's to share an idea with you. Maybe it's help you get through a challenge. Maybe it's giving you some ways to move to your dreams. But Cheryl and I both enjoy the hound out of doing this every single week. Some weeks we don't do it because of travel schedules, that type of stuff. In fact, last week that was a travel day, so I wasn't able to do it last week. But hey, we try to be here, and we hope we're bringing some value when you can join us. So this week's episode, what's it all about? I've titled it "Act versus React." And this is something that can define your business results, your management results, and everything else, because it could also be called that flight or flee motive that's inside each of us, that something happens that upsets us. And that's what often happens in business. You know, if you're in the chimney, the hearth, or the home service business, you deal with pressure every single day that you get up and go to work. Sometimes you don't even have to go to work, it affects you at home. You got to deal with customers, schedules, weather delays, installation issues, employees. The list goes on. But here's the question: when things go wrong, are you a person that reacts or do you act? Because that is a decision that can determine your reputation in this industry and the industry you're in. So, Cheryl, what's your thought about acting versus reacting that we're talking about tonight?
Well, we watch so many times a person just jumps back down somebody's throat and they don't think. The thing to me, a person needs to stop, breathe. I remember that old thing, breathe and count to 10. And if you don't react, then you don't upset the other person. The whole idea is to act on something and cause the problem to go down instead of escalate. Once it escalates, you've done lost the war.
Yeah, it is. You see, reacting is an emotional thing. Acting, on the other side of the coin, means you're thinking clearly and you're being intention. You're being intentional. And you know something? In this business that you're in, you don't get paid for your intentions. They may be the best in the world. You get paid for your responses under pressure. A customer calls in, they're upset. Is your reaction like this? Well, that's not our fault. We were on time. The supplier messed up any number of things. That doesn't show empathy. It doesn't show understanding. When something goes wrong, let's come up with better ways to answer that. Like, hey, let's fix this. We're going to take care of that for you. Here's what we're going to do next. And one of the biggest things that I teach in all my sales classes I do is the first words out of your mouth should always be, I understand. You see, sometimes we want to protect our ego, but we really need to protect our business and protect our reputation. Cheryl, what's your thoughts on that, what we're talking about here?
Well, and it's true. People have egos and they don't think before they say anything. And the thing about it, we're building a trust factor or trying to, and if you react instead of act, it puts up a wall you cannot bring down. And I've watched people when you just say, and this is what we take you talk to our CSRs also. I understand people want to be heard, and if you give them that chance instead of cutting their knees out from under them before they have a chance to go any farther, then it doesn't escalate near as bad.
Yeah. So here's a real scenario. You've installed something and it didn't go how they expected. Maybe there's a little bit of dust. Maybe there's a mess. Maybe it just isn't working right. Maybe you didn't set the expectations clearly. Now the customer calls, office picks up the phone. Here's a reactive response to that complaint. Well, the guy said everything was working when they left. Boom, you've just escalated it. You haven't calmed it down because now it becomes a trust issue and not a service issue. I mean, there's times out there that I've heard guys say, "Well, hey, it looks okay from my house." Means they don't have to look at it all the time. Here's an action-based response for you. I'm really glad you called and made us aware. Let's make this right for you. We've got a completely different tone, a completely different outcome. Your customer feels heard, not challenged. And from this, perception in business is everything. Answer this call wrong, and I can bet you're going to find a bad Google review up on your listing tomorrow. Cheryl, what can you think of to go along with that?
Well, number one, I'm going to act on what you just said. I think this is where a lot of the trades are missing the boat because they don't train their guys on this. They send them out, they let them do it. But it's a training thing. Most people do not act naturally. They react naturally. So that's I think that's part of the people that own the company, the trainers, whatever's going on there. I think that needs to be a full class on how to act instead of react. And I just don't think they get that training.
Yeah, you're right. I've done 2 SWAT meetings this week, and in SWATs, one of the major things we deal with are what are the company weaknesses and what do we do to correct the weaknesses? So here's another scenario. Your crew, the guys that work for you, the guys and gals, they made a mistake on the job. The wrong part was installed. There's cases I've seen where people have installed the wrong fireplace, the wrong wood stove. The measurements aren't right. Something's scratched, it's damaged. What's the first instinct? If you react, who did this? This is unacceptable. You guys need to pay attention. And when you react this way, your team's going to shut down. You're just throwing up a wall. They're going to get defensive. They're going to stop communicating. Now, here's a way to act on it. All right, folks, let's walk through what happened so we can fix this one and develop a system to make sure it never happens again. You've turned a mistake at this point into a training moment. It's a systems improvement and it becomes a culture builder. And that, my friends, that is what leadership is all about. Cheryl, what's your thoughts on what I just put in there?
I think they're great. The thing about it is that's where our SOPs and our systems came from. They came from screw ups. We don't know what we don't know until we screw it up. Once you
Yeah.
screw it up, it becomes a problem. And that's how a business needs to always be ready for change because something may have not screwed up yet, but the day it does, it needs to become part of your systems of how to handle it and what to do with it. We all make mistakes, you know that. And sometimes they're huge monetary mistakes, but most of them are natural mistakes. It's kind of like somebody told me if you make a mistake, hold your hand up, learn from it, and move on.
That's it. Because every company has these types of things happen. A day goes sideways. You know what those days are like. Jobs run too long. Somebody calls out sick. You got weather and it delays everything. Your customers are stacking up. They're calling in. They're frustrated. A reactive owner's going, this is ridiculous, folks. We got to get ahead of this. But if we act properly with the right communication, all right, let's prioritize. Who do we need to take care of first? Who can we reschedule? How do we get ahead of the expectations? Just the whole thing. Customers really don't expect perfection, they expect communication. And if you act early, you stay in control. If you react late, you're always going to be behind. Back to you, Cheryl.
Well, I am the female. I am the customer most of the time. Um, the male people are not normally at home when things don't go right. And when you're sitting there an hour past time and waiting, does your temperament go up? Yes, it does. You get flustered. You've wasted your day. Are they coming? Are they not coming? If I would have had a phone call an hour before that, letting me know either they were behind or I needed to reschedule, yeah, it would have been real simple. But we don't. We assume, again, we know what assume means. We assume that we're going to catch up and we're going to get those people. But by the time you get to them, number one, they've called the CSRs several times. They're upset. Then when the tech does get there, the people are already not happy. And so, to be honest, nothing you do at that point is going to make them trust you and be happy about the job.
So, why does this matter? You see, in what you're doing, what you're offering, you're not just selling a product. You're selling safety. You're selling trust. You're selling peace of mind. You're trying to build a relationship. All of these things are very, very fragile. Only one reactive moment can undo everything. It can eradicate years of reputation, hundreds of five-star reviews, referral relationships. But one strong, intentional response, you can turn a problem into a lifelong customer. You truly can. Back to you, Cheryl. Your thoughts.
I read a lot of reviews, and the most of the reviews could have been, well, they should have been handled, but they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Because if you would have taken care of the problem while you were there, or at least assured them that it would be done, instead of number one, not doing it. And the worst problem for me is to be the reactive CSR or manager in the office or owner of the company that won't return the calls when someone calls in with a problem. They sit on it for 3 or 4 days because they don't like confrontation.
Yeah, and that was one of the weaknesses that we dealt with in one of the swap meetings I did this week about the issue of failure to follow up with customers properly. But you got to train yourself. You're the leader. You're going to set the example. And by setting the example, you're going to train your people. Here's something that I'm going to recommend you think about. Build the pause moment. Train your team. Don't respond immediately. Respond intentionally. Come up with the right responses and build scripts for these. Start using language like, hey, let's take care of this. Tell the customer, hey, we really appreciate you bringing this up. Hey, here's our next step. This is what we're going to do for you. You lead by example because you're the leader and your team will mirror you. If you react, they're going to react. If you act, they act. It's the way it is. As a leader, you got to set the example. Back to you, Cheryl.
The one thing I can add to that, I mean, everything you said is totally intentional and needs to be done. But one thing worse than reacting is to act and let it be seen that you're not sincere. I mean, if you're just saying the words, people will know it. You need to mean what you say and do what you say.
Yeah. And Cheryl, while you were talking, Pam, she was in one of my swap meetings this week at the company she works for. She's made two excellent comments here. You have to stay on top of those kinds of calls and you have to understand their frustrations. You have to understand them. These are the critical steps, folks, where it's at. So here's the bottom line. If you're going to be in business, you're going to have problems. It's the way it's happening. Problems are guaranteed. What's not guaranteed is how you and your business handles each and every one. And you see, that's your edge. This is where you differentiate yourself from your competition, the others that are out there. That's your edge. This is how you're going to make it happen. Next time something goes wrong, and I can bet you it will, don't react, act. Take that pause. Think about what you're saying. Because the companies that wins aren't the ones without problems. They're the people who handle them better than anyone else. So what you've got to do, you got to act with purpose. You got to lead with clarity, and you got to build a business that consumers can trust and recommend you to their friends. That's what you got to shoot for. So, Cheryl, what would be your final thoughts on this today on the subject of act or react? And also, remember, you can't activate the fight or flee motive. That's built into every single one of us.
It is, and we all have it. We all use it. The thing is, be honest, be truthful, but be on time. And I don't mean be on time at the job. That's common sense. But be on time with responding. Don't pass the buck. And I see this more often than not. Pass the buck in the office at who's going to make that hard call. Somebody's got to make it, and somebody's got to fix it.
So I'm going to come at you kind of hard right now because all of us have this button. Even me, even Cheryl, and I probably got the worst one. And what's that button? I call it the jackass button, just to be perfectly blunt, honest. And some of us have hair trigger jackass buttons. There's people that are like that. Other people can take things so calmly, they can listen. So control your jackass button. Anything else, Cheryl?
No, I just want, and I'll agree with you there. Some do, some don't have it as bad. But again, don't let the customer see your jackass button for sure.
That's it. That's it. So anyway, we appreciate you joining us this evening, or if you're joining us on the replay. It's really an honor. It's a privilege, and it's a pleasure. We try to get together every week. And earlier today, Cheryl said, we're going to do a broadcast tonight? And I said, yeah, I just can't come up with the topic right now. So I'm going to credit her with coming up. She came up with the general topic, and we bounced it across each other a couple times. But hey, here's the question to you. You got a topic you want us to cover? Send it to us. You see our email address is up there. And in closing, remember, we're CBC Success Group, and we exist and we have a mission of helping people take their business to their dreams of what they visualize they really want to have. And we'll be glad to help you in any way. It doesn't cost you a dime to set up a call with us. So let us know how we can help you move the business you have to the one you dream of and have someone to help you get there. And with that, we'll see you next time on the next episode of the CBC Home Service Success Network. Again, from the deepest part of both of our hearts, we thank you for being here with us as always. We'll see you next time.